we are done. Finish. So, final exam. Final exam, I suggest those who attended come immediately because it's going to be easier. You remind things not to do at the final exam. You tell your colleagues not to do. People register, and Erika, what are you laughing about? Want to come here?
No.
You want to? Sure. So, things not to do at the final exam. You tell your colleagues, please. So, there are people who register. Every single exam they register. And then they know they don't come. You know? So, this please avoid. If you register, you come. If you think not to come, you don't register. Because it's not that if you register 10 times and never come, you will not pass the exam in this way. So, you tell your colleagues. First thing. Then, bargaining grades. It's extenuating because people are saying another question. You know, sometimes they don't even want to leave the class until another question. So another question, you take the risk that you go low. So it's not always a good idea. Try to bargain the grade. Final exam is gonna be I think is first one is 6th of June, second 25, and the third is 7th of July.
11 June.
11th June.
Okay, Erika, you say what's
11th June for
11.
school. Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
The others I don't know.
Okay, it's going to be one at the beginning of June, one at the end of June, and one at the beginning of July. So it's three options. What else? Yeah, we're gonna ask some questions about. Usually, is one question per each part of the course. Okay, so the course. Let's remember that the course is 4 parts. Okay, those who attended the midterm already did the first and the second, so they only have to do the third and the fourth. So let's recap. What are the 4 parts of the course, Sabrina?
The first one, antiquity and Middle Ages.
Antiquity and the Middle Ages.
The second one is contractarianism.
The
Contractarianism.
contractarianism. Yeah.
The third one is 18th century.
Yeah, we can call it mature modernity, 18th century, and something like this. Yeah.
Fourth is modern.
Not modernity.
Postmodernity.
It's not modernity. It's 20th century. 20th century and the contemporary world. So 4 parts. Usually is one question for each part. So those who already passed the first is 2 questions. So as usual, if you answer perfectly 2 questions, 30 cum laude. If you answer bad, bye-bye. If it's maybe sometimes we have to go more in depth. So these are the 4 parts. We try to do some recap at the end. So, but today we introduce John Rawls, last thinker we have. So, before John Rawls, in the last few classes, we addressed a few authors, especially Max Weber and Carl Schmitt. Max Weber and Carl Schmitt. How can we define this Max Weber and Carl Schmitt as an inspiration, as political thinkers? Sabrina, how can we define them?
Well, Carl Schmitt defines the political as the distinction between friendly and enemy. And Max Weber, sorry.
State and capitalist, but let's say as inspiration, how can we say in which tradition they belong, which approach they have, which approach they have in common with, for example, with Machiavelli and with Thomas Hobbes? Yes, and the political. This we introduce the distinction with ancient Greece, let's say Plato and Aristotle. What they have? Realism. So we have this Max Weber and Carl Schmitt, they're realists, because they say, yeah, politics is nice that you want to do universal rights, enlightenment, the rule of law, and balance of power, division of powers, and so on. So but in real, the origin of politics is conflict, is violence, is a division between two groups. So we have to acknowledge that at the origin of politics there is always war. The real matrix of politics is a war that divides between friends and enemies. Very realist. Max Weber, yeah, state is nice, constitutionalism and so on, but state is first of all monopoly of violence. We have to acknowledge that the origin is the monopoly of violence, charisma and so on. So realist thinker. Right now we close with a normative thinker, which is the other way around, the idealist. So they don't say what it is, but how it ought to be, how it should be. Normative thinker, idealist. They try to say idealist. So John Rawls he tried to make a theory of what? Of a just society. Of a just society. So we have to see that we're, in this book, A Theory of Justice, the theory for a just society, is 1971. So we're after World War II. So, Luisa, buongiorno.
Well done.
So, after World War II. So we have seen, first half of the 20th century is the bloodiest moment in human history. So, we have, the Nazis, genocide, World War II in World War I, World War II, the atomic bomb, 7 million Jewish exterminated just because they were Jewish, 20 million Russian soldiers died to save us from Hitler. So, thank you, Tovarish Joseph Stalin, who saved us from. So, 20 million people died only in Russia. So, bloodiest moment in human history. First half of the 20th century. It finishes 1945 and we enter the post-World War II. The post-World War II, we call it the 30 Glorious, because it was a moment of economic growth and also social, very, very, very social growth. What is one very important thing after World War II in Western society? That in Western society we developed very, very, very developed welfare states. Okay? So, a lot of economic growth, a lot of good economic benefit, but also redistribution of this benefit through progressive taxation, for example. Through progressive taxation. So, welfare state, redistribution, and so on. So, liberal democracies also become about redistribution. And John Rawls makes a theory about redistribution. He's a normative theory, he's an idealist. So, it gets back after 500 years, it gets back to social contract theories, right? Social contract theories. So, let's get back to social contract. Social contractarianism. What do we have in contractarianism? How is this structured, contractarianism?
It's a social contract that you give up your rights to the government,
Yeah.
to let government take care of it.
Yes, but yeah.
The idea is based on the state of nature,
And the
which is a false experience because nobody knows how people work in the state of
Yeah.
nature. So there's a reason to transfer the rights to the government authority.
Exactly. Contractarianism, so you have second step is social contract, but first step, state of nature. You imagine that you are in a situation without government. So it does the same thing. It doesn't call it the state of nature, but it calls it the veil of ignorance. So, the veil of ignorance. What does it mean, the veil of ignorance? Here we are, let's say, right now we are in a society, some of us is better condition, there's more resources, is happier, there's more money, has more things. So it's some of us has better condition in the society. Some of us has worse condition. Comes from a most deprived country. Has problem with citizenship, money, and so on and so forth. So we have different resources. These resources are obviously income, wealth, but also power, self-respect, all these primary goods, opportunities, and so on. So for sure, Rawls say, each of us want to maximize our index of primary goods, want to maximize our amount of these resources, liberty, powers, opportunities, income, wealth. Okay? So, what is a just distribution? What is a just distribution of these resources? Say, John Rawls. What is a just society in which all these things are equally distributed? So he said, to try to understand, we pretend that we don't know. We are in a situation in which we have no idea if outside this door we're rich, we're poor, we're deprived, we're free, we're not free, we have no opportunity, no income. We don't know. So we exit from society, we get into this class, and we are in the veil of ignorance. We have no idea outside in society if you're rich, if you're poor, if we're lucky, if we're unlucky. So this is the original position. It's like the state of nature, right? It's similar to the state of nature. We have no idea. So what is a just society? A just society is a society in which right now we don't know how is our condition, our situation in society, under which condition we all would accept to enter society, under which condition, what is a good distribution of the primary goods. So, he said, under two conditions we would enter. First, equal liberty, that we each of us an equal right to the most extensive system of liberties. So he says, because he's a liberal democrat, he says, okay, first of all, we have that all of us have equal liberty. Second principle, social and economic inequality outside of here, in this society that we don't know, would be accepted and only under the condition that every increase in the situation of the more rich person would benefit also the most poor. So, it's okay to have some inequality. If we get out from here, we don't know what is the situation. We would accept inequality only if the most luckiest, the richer, can get richer, but this also benefits those who are the most deprived, the last advantage. So, social and economic inequality are to be arranged so that they are to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged, and attached to office and position, open to all under condition of fair equality and opportunities. So, this second principle say, yeah, we accept difference, because you want to say, what is trying to say, that at the time there was the confrontation between the Western world, it was Cold War, the Western world working as capitalism, liberal democracies, and the Soviet Union, the socialist part of the world. The socialist part of the world says, we are promoting the real equality. People are equal only under socialism. He says, John Rawls says, no. Here, the liberal democracy, first principle, they protect liberty and freedom. Second principle, we accept inequalities, but this inequality work well. Because, every time somebody gets richer, we redistribute a part of the wealth to the less rich. So how does it work? This is, the theoretical justification of the welfare state, of redistribution policies. So if you get richer, there is this principle of progressive taxation. Progressive taxation means those who are more rich pay more taxes. And what do we use these taxes? to the advantage of the less advantaged. How do we do this? Do we give them money? Do we take money from the rich and give it to the poor? No, we do taxation. Hello. We do taxation, and through taxation we pay social services for the less advantaged, like kindergarten, public housing, healthcare, and so on and so forth. So this is a theory of justice. So this guy takes contractarianism back, and uses to make this theory of justice, which is a distributive justice, which is a theory of redistribution. And indeed, after World War II, for 30-40 years, liberal democracies had increasing in economic growth, but also decreasing inequality among the population of the West by doing this kind of things: progressive taxation and redistribution through public services. This was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then in the 80s you have this so-called neoliberal turn in economic governance. They say, yeah, but doing this means to grow the state, and this is against liberal principles, so they started to destroy the state. Also, the socialist bloc fall down, so there was no more competition about equality between the West and the socialists. So they could, they restarted to have, less state, less redistribution, because they were saying there is much more economic growth, there is much more freedom. But for 30-40 years, these ideas of Rawls worked very well. So Rawls' ideas on distributive justice are centered around the principles of fairness and equality. So what is a just society that ensures fairness and equality? Equality is different from equity, because equity is everybody has the same. Equality is I take into account that you're less privileged, so I give you more to you because you're less privileged. So Rawls believes that society must ensure that everyone has access to basic resources and opportunities, regardless of their social status or economic standing. Rawls proposes a system of justice that ensures that everyone has equal access to benefits and burdens of society. So it's this idea that to grant equal opportunity, you have to do some kind of redistribution. This means that those who are the better off should contribute more to society. If you have more, you should contribute more and subsidize the basic needs of those who are less fortunate. Rawls' ideas on distributive justice challenge traditional notion of social hierarchy and privilege, calling for a system that prioritizes the well-being of all individuals equally. Well-being. So this is the principle of the welfare state. The welfare state means everybody should be guaranteed a minimum standard of welfare, of well-being, the basic standards of living. And this we do through this redistribution. And Rawls makes a theory of this, by saying, yeah, redistribution is right, is a right thing, is a just thing, is based on justice, because if we don't know what is our position in society, we would accept to enter this society if we know that I can get richer, but if I'm rich, I can get richer. But if I'm poor, I know that when the people who is most rich get more rich, I got some kind of benefit through redistribution. So these are the principles of progressive taxation, and also this for many years was the situation in which Western countries said this is we are very good because we also promote equality. We have liberal democracy, which is based on freedom, but we also promote equality. Right now, there are many problems about this system of redistribution. There are many problems, and let's see, buongiorno. let's see if we can see some problems with the welfare state. What are the problems that we have nowadays with the welfare state? Let's see. We have a kind of welfare state crisis. Why? Why? What do we use? For example, let's say a big spending for the welfare state. Big spending. So, healthcare. Yeah, this is one. Healthcare. Yeah. Education. Yeah. Let's see another one. Healthcare, education. Then you have another one, which is pensions, retirement. Pension, retirement, and healthcare. So what do we have as a problem right now with healthcare and education? Many problems, but we have one problem overall. What is this problem? It's a natural problem. It's a physical problem. You have it in Russia, for example. You mentioned. Nuclear weapons. Yeah, that's a big issue. Yeah. You talked to us about this problem you have in Russia. What? No. This is not related. Demography. So what's the problem? Right now, people we have in Europe, it's aging population. So, you pay the pensions of the elderly through the work of the younger people. But right now you have more elderly than young people, so it's difficult to pay pensions. Healthcare, the most people got older and the more they need hospitals. But to pay hospitals, you need to have young people who works a lot, and so this is how also you make redistribution. Redistribution is between the rich and the poor, but it's also between generations. So when you're younger, you work and you help the elderly, because you know that when you get old, you will be helped by the young people of your nation, of your country. But right now, we have aging population, so we have this kind of problem. We have a crisis. So what is happening right now is that, for example, in Italy, the pension for the old people are mostly paid by migrant workers. Because migrant workers come here, they don't have access to some kinds of things, but they work a lot and they pay pensions for the old people. So this is why many people say migration is very useful for the countries for economic countries, because right now the European population is aging. So actually you get new workforce who pays for your pension, who pays for your healthcare.
I think there's a problem in Germany too. They don't have enough young people who have to work. That's why they want people to come for education to work. Because the German young people, they don't want to do construction and all the hard work. They want to just sit and study.
Yeah, they want to do tech, the crypto bro thing. Yeah, they want to develop startup. They don't want to clean up bathrooms or build up buildings. So this is why for globalization, migration, this was considered good, because you have an aging population, also because you have women entered completely 100% in the job market, so they don't want to be any more mothers and stay home and so on. They want to work, and this reduces the time you have to before it was a different situation. A woman was supposed to take care of children and not necessarily work. So right now we have this aging population, so migrants are considered to fix the problem somehow, but then they say that there was this theory right now, which is very, very, very popular in Europe, which is called ethnic substitution. So they say, yeah, but in this way, in the midterm, we're going to replace the European population with foreign population, especially in France. They think they're going to become a Caliphate Islamic countries, because the only one who have demographic growth are the Arabs coming from second, third, fourth generation from former colonies, like Algeria especially. So right now there is this big debate. There are those who say our economy cannot work without migrants, so we need migrants to still have our social system of welfare, and also say no, we're against this ethnic substitution. We have to preserve our nation. We have to get back to traditional values, and so on. Women have to stay more home, more housewife, and so on and so forth. So this is a part of the debate. And through this part, we're going to introduce the very last topic. The very last topic, we introduce it today, and it's going to be the topic of our conference tomorrow. So this is something that globalization is also about global migration. We have more mobility. So we have culture who are intertwined. And this, huge mobility also questions the relationship.
I'm doing a presentation today about John Rawls.
Ah, good. Yeah, I forgot to ask. Okay, great. Thank you for saying. Yeah. Other presentations today? No, only you? Okay. Do you need to plug your
It's already there.
Great, wonderful. Yes, thank you for my.
Do I need to use a microphone or?
And if you want to be in the video, if you don't want to be because you're shy, no.
Today I will be presenting the key ideas of John Rawls, who was a groundbreaking political philosopher whose ideas of justice and fairness reshaped modern debates on democracy, equality, and rights. John Rawls was born in Baltimore in 1921 and studied in Princeton before serving in World War II. His experience during the war shaped his moral philosophy, leading him focusing on justice and fairness. Later, he earned his PhD and taught at several universities, spending his most career at Harvard. His major works include A Theory of Justice, about which I will tell you today, Political Liberalism, and The Law for Peoples. His works reshaped the discussions on democracy, liberalism, justice, making him one of the most cited philosophers of modern times. Rawls developed his theory as a response to utilitarianism, which he believed failed to protect individual rights and allowed injustices if they benefited the majority. His goal was to create a fair system of justice that ensured equal rights and opportunities for all, especially the least advantaged. Rawls' most famous concept is justice as fairness, as the professor already said. He believed that a just society must ensure equal rights and opportunities for all. His theory based on two key principles, which he argued rational individuals would choose in a fair decision-making process called the original position. First is equal basic liberties, meaning that everyone must have the same fundamental rights, such as freedom of speech, political participation, and personal liberty. These rights can be sacrificed for economic or social benefits. And the second principle is the difference principle. That means that inequalities are acceptable only if they benefit the least advantaged. For example, higher salaries for doctors are acceptable only if they improve health care for everyone. This also includes fair equality of opportunity, ensure that people have real chances to succeed, regardless of their background. These principles work together to ensure both the protection of fundamental rights and fair distribution of resources that benefits the least advantaged members of society. Also, Rawls proposed the veil of ignorance, a thought experiment in which individuals design the principles of justice society without knowing their own social position, their class, their natural benefits. This ensures impartiality and fairness in decision making by creating rules that are fair for all. Since they might end up in any social group, they don't know which group they will end up. And that's why that means that people won't choose a system that disadvantages them. Now I'm going to present some of the quotations from the book Justice. From the book, The Theory of Justice. The bad man desires arbitrary power because he enjoys the sense of mastery and seeks social acclaim. By contrast, the evil man aspires to unjust rule precisely because it violates the independent persons would consent to. What moves the evil man is a love of injustice. He delights in impotence and humiliation of those subject to him. Here Rawls contrasts two types of immoral individuals: the bad man, who seeks power for personal validation, and the evil man, who takes pleasure in injustice and domination over those who are forget it. Then justice as first virtue. Justice is the first virtue of social institution, as truth is of system of thought. A theory, however elegant and economical, must be rejected or revised if it is untrue. Likewise, laws and institutions, no matter how efficient and well-arranged, must be reformed or abolished if they are unjust. Here, Rawls argues that justice is the foundation of social institutions, just as truth for scientific theories, for example. No matter how effective a system is, however, if it is unjust, it must be changed. This highlights a moral priority of justice over mere efficiency or stability. Among the essential features of this situation is that no one knows his place in society, his class position or social status, nor does anyone know his fortune in the distribution of natural assets and abilities, his intelligence and strength, and the like. I shall even assume that the parties do not know their conceptions of the good or their special physiological propensities. Here Rawls introduces the veil of ignorance, a thought experiment in which individuals design a just society without knowing their own position in it. Each person is to have an equal right to the most extensive scheme of equal basic liberties, compatible with a similar scheme of liberties for others. Rawls asserts that fundamental freedoms such as freedoms of speech, political participation, must be guaranteed equally to all members of society. Social and economic inequalities are to be arranged so that they are the greatest benefit of the least advantage and attached to offices and positions open to all under conditions of fair equality and opportunity. As I already said, that supports the idea that inequality is only acceptable if it helps those who are worse off, the least advantaged. And the last quotation is fair equality of opportunity. Positions are to be open to all under conditions of fair equality of opportunity. Beyond formal equality, Rawls insists that fair equality of opportunity means that everyone should have the same real chance to succeed regardless of their social background. Rawls' ideas continue to influence the discussions of democracy now, human rights, and economic justice. His vision of fairness provides a moral foundation for modern societies, ensuring that justice is based on equal rights, fair opportunities, and protection of those who are less advantaged. That's all, thank you.
So thank you, Alina, thank you. And you find it, no? So thank you so much. Was yes. Thank you, Alina. Very, 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 very good presentation. So this was the last one until tomorrow. We also have a presentation, but this was the last one on the course of things that I assigned to you. I have to say that I'm very happy this year. Great presentation. Almost all were perfect. Please remind to upload it to the Microsoft Teams. We have a folder on this. I really want to have, because some of them were very, 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 very good, and next year I want to integrate in my slides. This, yeah, you explain roles even better than me, so I'm very happy with this. So thank you for all who made presentations in this course. Remind to upload, okay? And remind your colleagues to upload it. Sabina, very nice color. Yeah, you're happy this morning. I see, you're very smiling. So, upload these things in Microsoft Teams. So right now, before we enter the last topic, let me say thank you so much for those who assisted me, especially Lynn. Really did a great job, Lynn. You worked so much. Thank you so much. Very, very, very efficient. And thank you to Nassim. Thank you to Alisa, who supported me to this course. Also, thank you to New, who made a huge work, and then she disappeared. She went to Spain. Thank you to Sabrina, that she was exploited even if she was not an intern. Thank you very, very, very much to all of you. Very, very great. I'm very grateful you really made this course possible. Yeah. Remember to make, if you like the course, remember to make a review on Google. No, I'm joking. There is the evaluation of professors. So if you liked it and you don't want me to go in welfare and become homeless and go on the street to say this, please make me 5 stars, great review, and so on. Also because we're thinking next year we may activate a new course which is called the History of Contemporary Political Thought. So I can go on the more contemporary things if you make me good grades and the course is approved. So please help me to survive. Okay, and now we get into the last point. Last point, it's useful to introduce the conference of tomorrow. The conference of tomorrow. So in this course, we mostly studied history of political thought, but which history of political thought? Western history of political thought. European history of political thought. It's something that was born in Greece. We started with Socrates. Socrates, laid the foundations for what we call history of political thought, but actually is Western political thought. So tomorrow we try, with the conference, we try to get more global. We will start with a very important presentation by Sabrina. Sabrina is going to introduce us to what is the post-colonial political thought. What is the post-colonial political thought? So Sabrina will introduce to this thing. So let's say something to introduce the topic. So yeah, West. This is what we call West. West. But as a Western people, we think that our concept, our ideas, our values are universal. But right, actually, we are a minority of the world. We're a small part. So yeah, what is Western, what is non-Western? But let's start with another point. So in this course, a very crucial concept is modernity, is political modernity. So let's try to recap. How do we go from the Middle Ages to modernity? We address four important processes. Yes. Yeah.
Scientific revolution and the Reformation.
Yeah. So the first one is very, very, very important. So 1492, what we call the discovery of America for us, Western people, is the beginning of modernity. And we think that in modernity we really give out the best. Because in modernity we started to criticize ourselves as a civilization, to get on and go forward. So, 1492, this was the situation in 1492. You know, the most important nations of Europe, including also Russia, and then we have, you know, the Turkish people, the Ottoman Empire. Turkey, it's an important part of Europe. So this was the situation in 1492. So 50-50, you know, 50 years later, this was the situation. We started to colonize, then we started to colonize more, then we started to colonize more. This is, you know, 1822, and, you know, this was when World War I started. So basically, European nations have colonized almost all the world from modernity. So one of the most important processes after this situation, after World War I and after World War II, one of the most important processes in the 20th century is decolonization. So nations all over the world started to say, yeah, we wanna have our own development. We wanna be free. The Western society, you know, commits this situation. What you Western people call modernity, actually it starts with an act of colonization. It was the moment in which in 1492 you arrived to the Americas, you colonized the Americas, and you committed a genocide against the indigenous people that were there. So, this idea of political modernity is this idea that we as Western, we started to develop our theories of the social contract, the state, the rule of law, the human rights, and so on. This is our idea. Then post-colonial theories say, actually modernity starts with an act of colonization, with a genocide, and with the process of Europeans that want to bring their own ideas all over the world. Right? So, what do we have? What are the most important, you know, founding father of post-colonial theory? We have Mahatma Gandhi. You know, Mahatma Gandhi took the principle of Hinduism and this principle of non-violence, non-violent disobedience to make India free independent from British. It was a British colony for a long time. Gandhi made it. Frantz Fanon, he was, you know, a theorist of he was a very well-educated Afro-Caribbean born in Martinique. So he was born in a French colony, then he went to France to study French, he became a psychiatrist and so on, but then he became the real, you know, how can you say, the ideological leader of the war of independence of Algeria against France. Very important post-colonial theory, you know. So, black skin, white mask, it applies psychoanalysis to explain, you know, the discrimination of the colonized in the colonies, you know, and to promote the theoretical justification of the insurrection of Algerian people against the French rule, the French colonies. You know, Jean-Paul Sartre wrote the introduction of his very important book, The Wretched of the Heart. So it advocates violence against colonization. Then this we're not gonna enter. It's very important concept, Orientalism, but this is gonna be the introduction for tomorrow. So I'm not gonna go to Edward Said, very important theorist. Let's say we close it with we close with this Indian theorist, Dipesh Chakrabarty, still alive, is a good theorist, and he wrote this book, Provincializing Europe. So we think that Europe, as we saw in the course of history of political thought, we think that we are the intellectual center of the world. This is somehow, we made great theory. We had great theorists, we had great thinkers, we had great intellectual movement, Renaissance, Enlightenment, and so on. But he said, okay, it's time, Chakrabarty says, it's time to move beyond Eurocentrism. It's time to shift from thinking that Europe is the center to think that it's a province. Is the Europeans think that their values and principles are universal, but maybe they're not. We have to dismantle this thing. This is what is going to be the conference of tomorrow is about. Is democracy a universal notion and value that can be applied to all the countries all over the world, or should we adapt to this concept and regulate and rethink in connection to each single country? So this is one crucial question we're gonna address tomorrow. So is the Western idea of democracy a general idea of democracy that is valuable everywhere, yes or not? Like, for example, the title of the presentation by Bach is very interesting, right? What's the title of your presentation, Bach? Yeah. If you remove the hand when you're talking, it's easier to understand you. So, what is the title of your presentation?
Vietnam, Socialism and Democracy.
Yeah. No, you don't remember it. Lynn, what is the title of this presentation?
Democracy and one party can be called.
Yeah, exactly. It's one party. Can one party rule comply with democracy or not? So, for example, here we say, to be democratic, we need more than one party to go to elections. So we think pluralism. But then, if you see reality, only people with money can actually, compete in the election. So maybe some other system they have only one party rule, but there is more open to people to candidate to elections. So is democracy, what we're going to discuss tomorrow, is democracy is a universal, yes or not? And should we, change and adapt the concept of democracy to different countries? So let's see what does he say, Chakrabarty. One point we wanna say, it really doesn't work, this keyboard and computer. So, the phenomenon of political modernity, namely the rule by modern institutions of the state, bureaucracy, and capitalist enterprise, is impossible to think of anywhere in the world without invoking certain categories and concepts, which go deep into the intellectual and even theological tradition of Europe. So, to think the institutions that we use politically, that under which we live in politics, we need to use categories, and these categories were developed in Europe. As we saw, what we studied in this course, we studied citizenship, we studied the state, the idea of civil society, human rights, civil rights as equality before the law, individual rights, and even the distinction between public and private, the idea of democracy, of popular sovereignty, social justice, science, rationality. They bear the burden of European thought and history. They were shaped by European history, you know. So, and by the Enlightenment, you see that the Enlightenment is our founding moment. We still use the categories that we have developed through Enlightenment, and they have established through the French Revolution. This concept entails an unavoidable and indispensable universal and secular vision of the human. The European colonizer of the 19th centuries. So we did the French Revolution and then we did colonization, and we thought it's good to bring these values all over the world. The European colonizers of the 19th centuries both preached this Enlightenment humanism, and the colonized at the same time denied it in practice, because they say, okay, let's go and bring it, but then colonization was brutal, was denial of these values, you know. So this comes the principle of the hypocrisy of the West. So we say, we're gonna bring human rights, we're gonna bring democracy, but actually we're more interested in bringing capitalism and taking resources. So the vision has been powerful in its effect. It has historically provided a strong foundation on which to erect, both in Europe and outside, critiques of socially unjust practice. You know, and you say, socialism and liberalism, they both of them born through this intellectual heritage. And so upper classes all over the world are educated through Western standards, European concept. So post-colonial theory challenges the concept forged by European political modernity and now understood as universal, challenges the Enlightenment ideas of rationalism, science, equality, human rights, and so on and so forth. So this is what Chakrabarty says, you know. So if you want to see a debate, you know, for example, France. In France, you know, that French people made the French Revolution, so they really believe in enlightenment. They really believe in the thing. So huge debate about hijab. Huge debate about hijab, because hijab is not allowed in public spaces, you know, in public spaces. So there was this law made by the French who say, since we believe in women rights, we not gonna allow, you know, people to dress hijab in public spaces, because we think it's irrespectful, you know, to force women to do this. And also we don't want religious symbols in public spaces, because we're a secular state. So, and then you had people who say, but this is, you know, your universalism you want to impose to us. You know, it's us, it's our women from our culture. Maybe they like to respect this thing, and so on. And so they say, it's us. You want to impose us the respect of our rights, but it's us who have to speak about our rights. So it's the subaltern figure of the former colonizer who has to speak about their right. So basically, you know, there was this huge debate. Right now is not allowed, but it's considered a sign of this kind of colonialism, of Western values over the other population. Sabrina, what do you think about hijab in public spaces? Should be allowed or not?
I think it's an example of the West thinking of themselves as cultural superiority, intellectual superiority. Who said it's forced? Or what if the Muslim women think that going out half naked is not empowering? For them, that is degrading. But to cover up, it's a desire that they want to do it. So why does the West think that it's forced or it's superior, isn't that? Just because people are different doesn't mean no one's above or below.
So if we go in France, for example, France, they have this growing population of Arabs, Algerians, Arabs, and so on. So they say, but we have kind of to bargain to get them accept our values, behavior, and so on. Otherwise, we're going to become an Islamic country. What do you think?
I understand, but when you are part of the Enlightenment and you believe in Enlightenment theories, shouldn't everyone be able to do what they want? Isn't it liberty friendly?
Yeah.
If you have your own desires, doesn't mean everyone should be the same.
Yeah, exactly. So Yeah, so exactly, because Western people, they say, yeah, we have this beautiful value, we have this beautiful idea, we have these beautiful rights. How can people do not want it? How can people still want to live in the Middle Ages? Why? So this is what Chakrabarty says. Chakrabarty says that the Western concept of modernity serves to so why? Let's go to historicism. Yeah, but I mean, modernity is good. When they bring you computer to works, I swear you want to enter Western modernity. Really. Okay, doesn't.
This guy's crazy.
But I want to get to the. I want to exit from. Okay. Let's get back here. Maybe it works better. So the politics of historicism. So basically, we as European, we think that we have modernity. That modernity is this combination between free economy, free market, capitalism, and you know, rule of law, democracy, and individual rights. This combination is what we call modernity. So Chakrabarty says Europeans have a politics of historicism. So they think since they got from Middle Ages to modernity, all the other populations in the world will have the same path. So they will move to more free markets, and more free markets bring, the fact that you have a middle class who claim new rights, who claim respect for their rights, and so you will enter this modernity. Like, for example, what we think for what Western people think about Iran, for example. Iran, they're still in the Middle Ages. They still have this intertwining situation between democracy and between religion and politics, but one day they will enter modernity. They will, do emancipation. And Chakrabarty say, you think that we will all go in this, through this rationalization, through this disenchantment of the world, through this history that has shaped Europe will happen everywhere. But he says it's not like this. Like, for example, he says in India, we have an economy who is developing towards a capitalist economy, but it's still so important for us, our beliefs, our traditions, and our, kind of mysticism, and our traditions who are completely different from the West, that we will never comply with the West. Our social structure will never become like Western structure. So this is what he calls the politics of historicism. So he says this, what you consider the subalterns, they have their own history, and they have to develop their own path to emancipation. Even though Western people think that they want to emancipate us to new rights and to democracy and so on, this is not true. We have to develop our own histories. So this is why post-colonial theorists, what they do, they go in the history of non-Western countries, and they try to develop a non-Western European tradition. So what we're gonna see tomorrow, for example, also is that what I would appreciate from people who make a presentation is to bring up the tradition, the different traditions from West that we have. Indeed, one of the first presentation is going to be on Confucius. Like Confucius is like Socrates for East Asia. He promoted crucial political principles of order, like similar to what we have as a development on the West. So the idea is that if you look at Socrates, you should also look at Confucius, at Buddha. what is the tradition of Islamic political thought? There is a very important tradition, but we ignore it. So the idea is to go towards a global history of political thought, a non-Western history of political thought. So what is non-Western? What does it mean? This also has, other disadvantages. It's a useful and economical way of referring to those countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and elsewhere that they were either colonized by European powers or subjected to powerful political and military pressures. Although these countries have different histories too, traditions and culture, they all share this profoundly significant historical experience and have to cope with the problems thrown up by it. They were humiliated by metropolitan powers because they were subjected to domination. In Vietnam, you were colonized by the French, right? Not happy about it. You have to fight against it. They were humiliated by metropolitan powers and exposed to a common set of exogenous ideas and forces. And their intellectual life was, for long, in many cases, still continues to be dominated by the question of how to respond to Western modernity. So the point is that the term political thought is conventionally taken to refer to ideas concerning, the nature of the state, the basis of authorities, and what we studied through these courts. So individual rights and the rule of law and so on and so forth. But what are the crucial concepts that can emerge from non-Western tradition of political thought, like how, for example, Lin introduced the point of karma. It is very important, karma. How do you introduce karma into politics? How do you transfer it into politics? Like the French government right now introduced the social credit system, which is a way of translating karma into a system of citizenship, into a system of politics. So this is what we're going to discuss tomorrow. Let's stop it here. Let's say that the crucial question that we're going to address tomorrow is this relationship between the Western world and the rest of the world. Is it desirable that our beautiful values that we established through enlightenment, like, as we say, rationalism, the fact that we should rule through reason and through science, the idea of individual rights, the idea that the individual is the basis of societies and they must be respected overall, the idea that liberal democracies are good to promote progress, and all these things should be envisaged, that we make these values global, or should we value and explore more the other other options, our other alternatives. So the point about the conference of tomorrow, we have many presentations. This is very good. What I invite you to do is to think about these things. To think about these things. I'm gonna read you what we wrote about the statement of purpose, which is gonna guide your presentation. So let's take a second to find it. Thank you. So, statement of purpose of the conference. This year, within the course of history of political thought, we largely debated about democracy. We have explored fundamental questions such as, what is democracy? How should it be defined? Is democracy a universal notion, or should it be adapted to the unique histories, traditions, and cultural context of different societies? And perhaps most importantly, does democracy truly work in today's world? Does democracy truly work in today's world? This is also a question that you can address. These questions are more than theoretical. They shape the way societies govern, resolve conflict, and pursue justice. While democracy is often upheld as the ideal political system, we must ask, is it always the best institutional arrangement, a form of government? In practice, does it deliver on its promises of representation, equality, and stabilities, or are there flaws in democratic governance that we must critically address? To explore these issues, we have organized the Global Forums as a space for discussion and debate. You know, let's challenge assumption, consider alternative, and rethink what governance should like in our rapidly changing world. So let's see some key questions. The first key question that you can address in your presentation. One point which is going to be at the center of the first part is what are non-Western form of governance? What are the historical alternatives to Western institutions, to liberal democratic institutions? Can democracy adapt to all culture, or should be adapted to different culture? Historical events shaping political institutions, you know, and comparing democratic tradition globally. If democracy, another question, if democracy is meant to serve the people, why do elite interests dominate policy making in most democracies? If democracy, we repeat it twice here. Okay, so these are key questions. So in your presentation, you try to address one of these questions, which can be in general, what you think about democracy as a universal or not, or can be particular because you want to start with your specific context. So you can say in my context, which is a non-Western context, democracy works for this and this, but we also challenges with this and this other point. So this is, I hope this is clear. So do you have, well, I have to answer your message, but yeah, tell me.
Like democracy in some countries cannot work because some countries relying on something else.
Some countries?
Relying on the democracy of one country. Like one region, for example, is under like there is no sovereignty there. So if I'm talking about my area, it's not sovereign country. It's not like it doesn't have democracy. And
Your country?
I mean my region, like it's autonomous republic.
Is
Autonomous republic.
Yeah.
Crimea is autonomous republic, so it's relying on Russia.
Yeah.
But under United Nations, under Ukrainian.
It's under Ukraine.
So it's complex. It's not. There's no democracy that you can say no.
Yeah. So, but in general, I mean, I saw the presentation is quite correct. It's quite good what you say. You say something about your country and you say what are the challenges right now for democracy and what are the main points. So, slides is not compulsory. I mean, if you want to make slides, it's okay, but there is absolutely no problem if you do not want to make slides. So, any questions about the conference for tomorrow? Sabrina, you want to make some point? Do we need to make Sabina? Do we need to make some? Want to say something? There are technical issues to be addressed. Okay, everything is fine. Okay, guys. So we're almost done. Let's recap some crucial points for the final exam and for the thing. So first thing you have to know that the course of the history of political thought has 4 parts: antiquity and Middle Ages, social contract theories, mature modernity or 19th century or whatever you want to call, and the contemporary world, which is 20th century. So these 4 parts. You know that we study the history of political thought through authors. We talk about, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Marx, and so on. It's important that you know the authors, but the most important thing is that you remember the concepts. So it's more likely that I'm going to ask you a concept more than an author. What are these concepts? So, for example, for the first part, the most important concept you have to know how to answer is republic and republicanism, which is political ideology and theory who values participation, who values public duties, who values the fact that you have that you have patriotism, that you have to protect your country. I think was described, for example, by Cicero, by Machiavelli, and many others. So republic is the most important concept for ancient Greece, ancient Rome. And then you have citizenship, and then you have virtue. Virtue is the crucial part of the republic. You have to act virtues. Then we have, you have this idea of citizenship, which is crucial. Citizenship is also very important to understand Christianity. To understand Middle Ages, we only have one class. It's not a big thing, but we have to understand that, Christianity did this revolution by making universal citizenship, because everybody could enter, the Christendom somehow. So it was revolutionary. So, Machiavelli, why is Machiavelli important? Because he divided more politics from ethics. He made the first autonomous part of, he makes the first autonomous idea of politics. He's the founding father of political science because he established politics as an independent field. How do we get from Middle Ages to modernity? Through these major events. The discovery of America, or the colonization of America, the Protestant reform, also very important because it started to promote individualism and so on, the scientific revolution, printing machines, and humanism and Renaissance. So then we got to the social contract theories, contractarianism. Why they are so important? Why are they so important, social contract theories? Because we use it to understand how, when, and why we invented the state as the main form of living under political institutions. We live under states right now, but it didn't exist before. It didn't exist until the moment we started with these theories. Before we had empires, before we had city-states, city-republics, and so on, urban dimension, empire dimensions, kingdoms, reigns, and so on, but no, the state is based on this idea that it is a social contract between the population and the authority. For the social contract, we have three theories. Each of them you have to remind why it's important. Thomas Hobbes, because he invented the concept of sovereignty. Sovereignty is the crucial concept for the state to exist. Each state must have sovereignty, otherwise it's not a state. Why is important? Hobbes will use it to understand this concept of sovereignty. Then, so sovereignty is one concept. Liberalism is crucial concept. So it's very likely that I'm going to ask you what is liberalism, and you have to answer it very well. We know that Locke with his theory of the social contract, is a founding father of liberalism. It's very important that you remind this. Founding father of liberalism is Locke. What is liberalism? Liberalism is we focus on individual rights and limited government. And then we have a third concept. So sovereignty, Hobbes, liberalism, Locke, and then we explore the third concept. Founding father of democracy. Democracy is about equality. It's about equality of everybody. It's about positive freedom and so on. So, founding father of democracy. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, founding father of liberalism. John Locke. Why is Hobbes founding father of the idea of sovereignty, if you want, of the modern state? So this is how we go through this thing. Then we have enlightenment. Then we use enlightenment as a crucial moment to make all these theories of the social contract political reality, and to introduce new principles like separation of powers, Montesquieu, the American Revolution and the French Revolution. These two revolutions are very important, but when I ask you at the final exam about the revolution, I don't want to hear the history. This is not a course of history. This is a course of history of thought. So I want to hear the ideas. the ideas of the Declaration of Independence, the ideas of based on the American constitutions, the leading ideas of the French Revolution, which are the concept of nation, constituent power, and civil rights and political rights. We have a third revolution, we have a third revolution, then, which is a social revolution, industrial revolution, very important revolution, and also in terms of politics, it produced new inequalities and it gave birth to also another political ideology, very important to study. So, industrial revolution gave birth to which ideology?
Marxism.
Pardon?
Socialism. Marxism.
Yeah, socialism. 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 So socialism says civil rights, political rights are not enough to address inequalities. We have also to promote social rights, social equality. Socialism. Founding father
Marxism.
Karl Marx. You studied Karl Marx. Karl Marx, very important because it moves from the state to say we have to center on society. Don't stop focusing on sovereignty, rights, and so on. Let's focus on society. And what drives society? Capitalism. 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 So we have Karl Marx, which is, we use it for socialism. You study Karl Marx very well. And we only use one author for socialism, but you have to study well, for example, for liberalism, we use more than one author. We study John Locke, then we study Alexis de Tocqueville to understand why liberalism and democracy are different, what is the critique of liberalism to democracy, and we study John Stuart Mill to better understand the concept of liberty, which liberalism was trying to develop. For socialism, we only use Karl Marx, and then some mentions also to the guy who really made the ideas of Karl Marx reality, political institution. Who is this guy? Oh, Lenin, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, who tried to make the ideas of Karl Marx reality, but he had a big problem, because the idea of Karl Marx was where we have to do. This is why, for example, socialism is completely within the politics of historicism that we say. So the politics of historicism right now is modernity, Western modernity. Everybody has to go to the stages of the European countries, so Western development, capitalist, liberal democracy, and so on. Karl Marx was totally with this idea, because he said we have to pass from feudalist system to capitalistic systems, and then to capitalist systems you have the working class, and then the working class grows and makes the revolution to pass to socialism. So this was historicism, also has this linear idea of things. Lenin had a big problem because he wanted to make socialism, but he was living in a country of peasants with no industrial classes. So he made, this is why the problem that Lenin had at that time is very important right now for debates in post-colonial theories, because there was this idea of development. So Lenin, and with Lenin we enter the last part of the course. A lot of things in the 20th century, a lot of things, but we use in somehow three thinkers, Nietzsche, Max Weber, and Carl Schmitt, to understand the crisis of Enlightenment principles and Enlightenment values. They say many different things, but all of them start to say, yeah, it's beautiful to have this constitutionalism, rationalism, individual rights, to govern everything through rationality, but they say, but at the end, the real foundation is not rational, it's based on passions, is based on the real politics, is based on conflict, is based on violence, is based on a separation between two parts who conflicts. And Max Weber said, yeah, this rationalist thing promoted by the Enlightenment is becoming an iron cage in which we have to live under the rules of bureaucracy and under the rules of the capitalist division of labor, in which you have to do a boring work for all your life and so on. So the Enlightenment rationalism is becoming an iron Cage. And so Max Weber studies capitalism and the state, makes a theory about the state in which the real foundation of the state is violence, is the monopoly of violence, you know? And then Carl Schmitt say the same, the real foundation of politics is division, is conflict, and so on. Then we went, the last two authors are Hannah Arendt for the theory of totalitarianism and John Rawls for a theory of redistribution. Tomorrow, last topic, post-colonial theory, non-Western history of political thought. Thank you so much for being here all this course. Thank you so much for your attention. It was a great pleasure, and good luck with your exam and future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the course, Professor.